Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. Today, this is the Unstuck Business, helping you with business breakthroughs, right? So these are tools and testimonies for business breakthrough in your life. Today, we have the incredible Frank Favaro with us on the platform. Frank, before we even get into the intros, I like to jump into something to get right into the meat and bones of things. Right now, we're at a 17-year low in the United States for customer service satisfaction. So why are we at such a low right now, and what can we do about that?
Great question, Rob. Thanks for having me. So customer satisfaction, yeah, right. Something we all experience because every single day we are both the business and the consumer, and we flip hats depending on what minute of the day it is. And 17-year low, 18-year low customer satisfaction, we all experience it, we all feel it. And I think it's the perfect storm of things. It's not just one thing, it's multiple things. So the first, great economy, best economy in my lifetime through 2017, 2018, 2019, right? And as a result of that, companies were experiencing records for profits. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, companies started thinking, we are so good at what we do. Look at our profits, and they're judging their success based off of profit. And as a result of that, they stopped prioritizing the importance of people, their employees, number one, and then their customers, number two. And you can't give a great service experience unless it's first felt internally. So if you're not giving that to your employees, how do you expect to go get them to go deliver that for the customer? It doesn't work. So that's step number one. Step number two is we had the pandemic happen, but obviously we saw satisfaction going down prior to the pandemic. It was actually stagnant at that time. The scores were. So this was happening really prior. And then the third thing, when we really look at it, leaders were never putting themselves in the shoes of their employees and their customers. So they were only looking at it through that one lens, which is, oh, we're great, right? We're fantastic. So as a result of that, here we are today. Business got easy. I just wrote an article on this idea. Did you watch the Rocky 3 series?
Oh,
Rocky,
yeah,
Rocky 1, 2, 3. Most of us have seen Rocky. So I love how Rocky 3, if you remember, the movie starts out, Rocky's knocking out all these guys. He's super successful. He's on the cover of he's American Express, and he's doing these commercials, and he's well-to-do now, right? He's wealthy, he's successful. And I think about that's how businesses are today. They've had all these easy matches, these easy bouts. They've been winning without really having to try. And as a result, their employees have gotten dull. Mm-hmm. They've had so much success and they really haven't had to take care of customers well because there's just so much other business out there. And here we are today. We're having this Clubber-Lang moment, as I call it, as things are starting to tighten up. Business is getting harder to come by for certain companies, and they have to get out there and hunt a little bit more when they don't really have the tools to hunt because the blade has become dull. So I think that's the perfect storm of where we are. And it's exciting because I think there's so much opportunity out there for companies that do want to go all in on investing in improving their people and their company.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And it's easy. It's interesting how we as human beings in our companies reflect us as humans. When things are going well, we tend to let off the gas instead of doubling down on the things that really work. Because I would imagine things got to where they are because people doubled down on customer service and making it a great customer experience. And so as it worked and profits went up, they decided we can take the foot off the gas and slow things down. And here we are. We kind of go in cycles as humans in this way, in many different ways. So before I want to jump more into this, because this is really fascinating and it's amazing that you've made this your expertise. And I really want to touch on this. This is the Unstuck Business. This platform is to help people with their business breakthroughs. And if you're experiencing low customer satisfaction, man, this is the podcast for you right now. Today, it's brought to you by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. This is Frank Favaro, founder and president of ServeCentric Coaching. is a leading CX coach. CX coach is a customer experience coach recognized as the CX Coach of the Year in 2022. Frank empowers businesses with innovative strategies to enhance profitability through exceptional customer experiences. Frank, what makes you an expert in customer experiences?
So for myself, I think it's time, it's important to kind of backtrack a little bit too, because you're right. You mentioned something that's very important, and it's letting your foot off the gas, right? When things are going great, you can let your foot off the gas. Zig Ziglar, the great Zig Ziglar, said, you can only coast when you're going downhill. You can't coast, right? So you can't coast.
That's so good.
So to think about that, for me, I was an athlete. I experienced in my lifetime, I was a wrestler, and I'd let my foot off the gas because I was on paper the champion and the guy to beat, and I was the top guy, and I was a top guy nationally. And guess what? I stopped training at the level I needed to train at to win at the level I wanted to win at. And what happened was I didn't accomplish my goals. So for me, I've taken that experience, and that's so important for me now with how I train companies and work with them. And I don't train, I'm a collaborator. I don't come in and tell people what to do. This is how you got to do it. I'm a facilitator of ideas. I'm a thought partner. I come in to try to help companies figure out who they want to be, how they want to get there, where they really are being challenged. And that's what we do. So customer service, I flunked out of college. All right. I went to college for one reason, and it was to wrestle. That's all I knew how to do my whole life was wrestle. And then when I didn't want to wrestle anymore, I didn't want to go to school anymore. So I was like, okay, so how can I earn a living now? I'm in the real world. What am I going to do? And I'm like, all I know how to do is lose weight and wrestle and exercise. So what could I do? And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to help people get started on exercise programs so they can achieve their health and fitness goals. And that's really where I learned service. I mean, service for me in my younger years was all about me, was serving myself. Wrestling is a one-on-one sport. So you have to serve yourself first, right? Mm-hmm. But then going into business, I learned that it's about serving others. So I always say I committed my first 20 years of my life to winning for me. And now I've committed my last 20 years to winning for others. And I went into that health and fitness industry, and that's where I really learned how to serve, meaning people would come in, a complete stranger. Here comes Rob. He's coming in the door of a fitness center. He's interested in losing weight maybe, or getting in shape, or whatever that looks like. But at the same time, those places can be intimidating. You could get some musclehead who walks in, who's like you don't relate to, just in terms of how you look at people. So for me, it was coming in, people would come in, I would get to know people very quickly, and I would earn their trust just by being authentic and real and genuine and showing empathy for their situation. Because that's a really vulnerable place for people to come into a fitness center, because we already have this idea of what it feels like when it is, and to come into it and maybe maybe you're a mom of 3 kids and you've been thinking about getting in shape for 10 years and you just never pulled the trigger. And now you put yourself out there in this place. And and that's where I really learned how to serve. What was like, I need to help these people accomplish their goals. And to do that, they have to be comfortable first. They have to be they have to want to work with me. And that's where it really started. It was how to be empathetic, how to really put yourself in the shoes of other people, even though you never really can, but you can still feel what they're going through. And that transformed me. It's been probably one of my, I would say, undercover superpowers of sales and business, is that power of empathy. And that's where I learned it.
That's really, really good, Frank. I love that. And I'm surprised I never heard that quote from Zig Ziglar. I'm still hung up on that. You can only coast when you're going downhill. That is such a great quote. But very interesting hearing just kind of like your journey here, because it makes a lot of sense coming from the background of wrestling. I wrestled for about 4 years in junior high and high school. I was not that good, but I knew the work ethic. It was insane. It was such an insane work ethic that you had to be a great wrestler. So I can see how that applies to you wanting to, You did that for yourself. So you know what it takes. So you know what it takes to help somebody else get there also. And it's interesting, right? Talking about empathy and being, when you're right in front of people, it can be easier to be empathetic. It can be more difficult to be empathetic when you're not directly facing your customers all the time and you're kind of guessing what they need, what they're going through, and how you need to serve them correctly. And this is a place where, well, I think every company struggles, and the ones who figure it out are the ones who are the giants, the titans who really crush it. Because when you can really figure out what your customers need, and you can figure out how they are being underserved by other people in the industry, then you can find the secret sweet sauce of like how they need to be served. How do you help companies do that? And that might be a large question that might have a large scope of an answer, right? But I feel like so many people and companies get it wrong because they can't figure out what exactly it is that their customer needs. How do you practically figure that out for them? What made you the CX Coach of the Year back in 2022?
Yeah, I think there's three things. So the first thing is, and stay with me on this. This is an idea here. It's service aptitude. We all have a level of service aptitude. Rob, 20 years old is different than Rob today. Frank at 25 years old is different than today. Our service aptitude is always improving, typically as we age and we experience more and more things. Like, the moment I went and stayed at a Ritz-Carlton for the first time in my life, I experienced what that really was. I thought why would somebody pay $1,000 a night to go stay at a hotel? That's ridiculous. It's a bed. It's a flat screen on the wall. There's a restaurant. There's a cafe. Why would somebody spend this money? But until you go experience what that really feels like, and then you walk away and be like, I see why people spend that money. That's service aptitude. So it's, and we all have a level of it. And here's the thing. Employees today, they come and work for a company. And everybody has different levels of service aptitude. Where does it come from? It comes from our upbringing, our parents, our teachers, our counselors, our coaches, our pastors, all these people who influence us early on. Look, if I came up from a single mom household and I love, doesn't make that, and my mom had to work 2 jobs to put food on the table. She was not really teaching me high service acumen business skill, right? Of how to treat people. Mm-hmm. I probably never flew first class, drove luxury automobiles, right? I didn't have that experience. So it's where you come from, right? The second place you get the aptitude is your previous bosses. And most of us have worked for bad bosses in the past. And what happens is their ideas and how they do things. So if they think customers are out to take advantage of them and they think that, we're going to punish people and punish customers for, just what a slim majority do. And if we just look at all they want to do is beat us up, take our product, we're going to have this mindset about customers. So the first place that we work this out is we help companies understand that it's their responsibility to dictate the level of service in their company. And that means you have to invest in people. You have to invest in the actual training if you want to dictate. If you want to talk about the giants, the Chick-fil-A's, Chewy, Ritz-Carlton, and go on and on. But what they do is they are always working with their teams and then giving them the tools to be successful. And then they're empowered and they want to serve because they feel like they've been invested in. And it's really important. So the first thing is companies have to understand is you have to improve your people. It's like, as a wrestler, I could never expect to go out there and get better if I'm not practicing the moves. Mm-hmm. I have to practice this move 100 times to get better, 1,000 times to get even better than that, 5,000. There's no such thing as good enough. Yeah. Right? So that's the first place, is our service aptitude. The second place is it's helping companies to understand to stop focusing on their competition and start focusing on their customers and start focusing on their employees. They're so focused on what everybody on the outside is doing and not focused enough of what's going on here. And And then the third place is constantly putting themselves in the shoes of other people, constantly putting themselves in the shoes of the customer. Just like I talked about, I can have empathy once I understand, but most leaders don't understand. There's a disconnect from the front lines to the boardroom of what that experience really is. And they don't see it because they're not on the front lines experiencing it. I would recommend every leader, CEO, go out there on the front lines and really feel what it's like for their team, and then also for their customers.
Oh man, that's so true. You know, I have a mentor, and his name's Ray. He's in his 80s. He was in the food service industry most of his life before he became a coach, and then moved into other industries. And one of the things he always talks to me about when I'm doing like team training sessions or leadership sessions, and one of the things that he always did was he would do a lot of like mock situations. Like they would do like setup situations where the CEO and the bus boy or whoever that is on the low end of the stock boy or whatever it might be, they'd be on the same page, and the stock boy would have as much say as the CEO had. And then they would do mock situations where the CEO had to do what the bus boy did, right? And had to go through that customer experience of what that experience was like. And he said it was so transformational when you got a CEO or the leaders of the organization who were actually willing to do it. The transformation was huge because it clicked for them of like, this is where the rubber meets the road. And when you're disconnected from that, it can be really hard to see it. It can be really hard to like wrap your head around it. And he had a motto too. And I imagine you would also develop or also accept this motto. He said that I have two things that I do. I serve the customer and I prepare to serve the customer. And so his whole everything was either serving or preparing to serve. If I'm not directly serving the customer, then my mindset needs to be, how am I right now preparing to serve that customer? And he said he lived by those two things, and those two things would transform industries. They'd transform companies from going out of business to being the top in their field. And it can be that simple, right? And not saying it's easy, but oftentimes things are simple, not necessarily easy.
Yeah, and I agree with you. If you're not serving the customer, you probably should be serving someone who is. And, and you're right. It is so simple. Look, I bring it all the way back to football. And those who are watching this and they've worked with me, they hear me say this a lot. When we really get back to, okay, this is a game. Business is a game also. I look at athletics and business they mirror each other identically. It's a game, okay? And it's a game of being brilliant at the basics. Football is always going to be blocking and tackling. And those who execute their plan better win. Mm-hmm. Blocking, tackling at the end of the day. It's the exact same thing with business. Business today, it is all about service, pure and simple. Still, here we are in 2024, and it's still service that really is the differentiator, because technology can be copied so easily today, right? You might have a differentiator for 3 months, but it's gone. And the only way you really can differentiate is your people and that level of service. And I look at it two ways. People think, oh, our service is already good. Okay, so it's the quality of your service, but here's where most people are missing the boat. It's the quantity of the service. So that means every employee, not just these guys over here who are the A players. It's how about these people and then these people, because what happens, and the customer, they're experiencing what we call as employee roulette. Meaning the experience that you receive is depending on which person answers the phone or which person shows up for the job. And it's inconsistent. So you can have quality of service with certain people, but you have it quantity with all your people. And that you can't just be good sometimes. You got to be good all the time.
Yeah, that's really good, man. That's really good and very, very true. So we have to jump into a commercial break for 60 seconds to shout out the sponsor of the podcast. When we come back, though, I want to talk about how do you bring in effective communication? I'm all about communication. How do we communicate better? and problem solving, right? Because conflict resolution is one of the biggest things when it comes to making sure that customer satisfaction is where it needs to be. So what do you implement for communication and for problem solving to ensure that consistency keeps happening? We'll talk about that in 60 seconds.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So when we talk about effective communication, we talk about problem solving skills and that conflict resolution. How do you approach that? How do you recommend that business owners approach that?
Yeah. So when we talk about effective communication, like I do a lot of internal surveys, and I ask in these they're anonymous surveys. I'm a third party with the companies I work with. So we do an assessment and what is the one thing holding the company back? What's the rock in your shoe? What is the one thing we could improve to get to a new level? And 69% of the time, it is communication. It's that word. It just keeps popping up over and over and over again, right? So what we do is we assess that and we start looking at that. And then we start putting better systems and processes in place to help to solve for that. Now, we're humans. We're going to screw up. We're going to make mistakes. There's always going to be that moment. But if we can reduce those inconsistencies and we can improve that communication, even like 5 to 6%, it really can change and impact the overall project or the, whatever that sale or that deal or that, whatever it is. Right. So we're able to do that, but it's all about going through very specific exercises, I would call them, to get to that new place. And what we do then is we create an actual training manual, an actual company playbook for like, this is the way we do it moving forward. We create standards for the companies. So like they walk out of it with a tangible, like, all right, so this is our playbook now. And by doing these things consistently and by getting everybody on this exact same page of this is the new way of doing it, by that, then we're able to improve the communication because we're upgrading the systems and the processes for it.
Where do you normally see communication breaking down? Like what's the biggest place?
It's typically breaking down from department to department, the handoffs. So for example, if I'm in accounting, and I wasn't given a specific change order or something that happened, and next thing you know, I have the wrong numbers. Now I'm sending invoices, and it's a completely different, number from what the client has, and now we have this disconnect because, it was just a bad handoff. We weren't consistent. We didn't follow our plan or have a plan. With just everybody's doing it their own way. And as a result of that, it just creates chaos and constant fires in the business.
Yeah, and so the communication leading into the conflict resolution part, because if poor communication leads to conflict, I mean, that's just how it works. Bad communication, you're going to have conflict. And once there's conflict, then things really start to fall apart because now people start back talking one another. There's a lot of infighting inside of the company. And now it looks like this massive, lots of individual problems create one massive problem. But the effective communication can really be something that stamps that out in the beginning. But once you already have those conflicts building up, is there a certain strategy or certain things you do that are very effective to resolve conflicts?
Yeah, it's putting together, like, we do some things that are very similar to Ritz-Carlton, for example. They've created their gold standards for how do we want to do business every single day. And, with companies I work with in the mechanical trades, one, for example, their credo, their standard is communicate, communicate, communicate. And that means over communicate, right? So what does that really mean? Well, we've implemented a system where it's who, what, where, when, why, how. Everything we go through now, we think through the process of who, what, where, when, why, and how. Who needs to know this information? Why is it important, right? Where are we doing this project? Where's logistically, where do we need to be? What time does that look like, right? Who, what, where, when, why? Why are we doing the things we're doing? And then how are we going to achieve it? Who needs to be part of it? And then we go through that. And as a result of that one exercise, people are able to easily improve that communication. Because here's the thing, there's for every action, there's always an equal and opposite reaction, right? Poor communication leads to conflict. What's conflict lead to?
Conflict leads to fighting, which leads to people quitting, people getting fired, nothing getting done.
Yeah, exactly. So that is never a line item on a P&L, conflict. But when you think about why are people leaving your company, why is morale so low? Why do we have such a high percentage of quiet quitting? It comes back to communication. Mm-hmm. So leaders don't understand the impact of poor communication. They just sweep it under the rug, turn a blind eye. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And as a result of that, look, they're doing good. A lot of companies are doing good. But how much better could they be doing? How much money are they leaving on the table in terms of having to hire, train, retrain, hire, train, retrain again, the constant treadmill of turnover, low morale, right? Losing customers, attrition, both employees and customers. It could be so much better. In the companies I work with, they really want to have an environment where people are happy. I mean, we spend more time at work than we do with our families.
Yeah.
It can't be miserable. And if it is, well, unfortunately, that's where we see all the problems.
Yeah, man. And everything that I always talk about when I'm doing any form of communication coaching or leadership coaching is like, this isn't just business. Like, this is also your life. Like you said, you spend more time at work than you might spend with your family. And if we're not improving ourselves as human beings, it's going to be really hard for us to go into work and be productive and impactful. So like we tend to separate these things. Everything that's professional comes back to personal. Everything that happens professionally is going to be something personally. And we have to become better as people. When you're working with people, is that something that you focus on with teams? Like, what is your home life like? What's your life like with your family and your friends and with yourself? Are these things you also cover to make sure that it's a full life change, not just a change when they show up to work?
That's what just fills me with energy and joy. Yes, this should be permeating into your personal life, because your habits are your habits. If it's a habit, it's going to impact everybody. And there's nothing that makes me feel better in this world. I just get chills right now thinking about it. And I feel like I have the spirit fills me of like knowing I'm helping people impact their lives in a positive way, their home lives, the relationships with their kids, with their spouse. Like, I didn't set out to do that, but that's what happens. And that's what I love about what I do is, it's not just about business. It's about life.
Yeah, it's about life. And that's unavoidable. Your habits are your habits. So if you have bad habits at home and you're trying to change your habits at work, they're probably not going to, they might change a little bit, but they're not going to change all that much. And people can, whether they consciously know it or not, they can pick up on that authenticity or that inauthenticity. Like, they can tell. And you can tell, your family can tell, your friends can tell. So, and the more that you know that you're being authentic, the more you know that you're living with integrity, the more integrous you become. And it's just a part of the puzzle. And I think it's really cool, right? It's like a Trojan horse going into businesses and doing these sorts of things, because you're going in for what they think they want or what they do want, right? But you're giving them what they need, like for their life, not just for their business. And that's such a powerful thing to give people.
Well, you think about people in leadership positions and CEOs and owners of companies, and do you want to drive home every day, or maybe you work remotely, but at the end of every day, don't you really want to have your people feel as if this is the best place I could work? Like they're happy, like you know that, or do you just go home every day and think about transactions and just, people are numbers, and they're like Simon Sinek once said, people are a towel, and your job is to like see how much you can wring out of them, like a wet towel like that. No, it's like, how can we get people to perform at their natural best every single day and want to come in and have that drive and be engaged and to know that what they're actually doing has purpose around it? And that's the one thing I didn't speak to that's really important also, Rob, is like in today's world, like purpose is everything. It's everything. A company that doesn't have purpose, that's very clear and intentional, and they're talking about it every single day, they're missing the boat. That's a transactional business. And I guarantee you their service is extremely poor. So instead of that, because it even goes back further with purpose, the young folks today, they're especially focused on purpose. Like they're purpose driven, like because they saw their parents and grandparents be loyal to a company their whole life and then pretty much like retired. Maybe they didn't, it wasn't that great of an exchange. So like with just purpose, or with just having a transactional relationship, dollars for hours is an exchange, right? With just having that with no purpose, like you're struggling probably right now to find the right people. You're constantly, you're going through that as a company. So you have to bring in the human dynamic into this in business today. Like, and if you're not, I don't know what to tell you. Like you're missing the opportunities.
You're missing the opportunities in your business, and you're also missing the opportunities for yourself to grow. And I think if we have a leader, a CEO, a boss, whoever it is, that does not embrace this, it's really hard, because people underneath that person who really want to embrace it, they really want to have that sort of environment. But to get the person at the top on board is sometimes the hardest part, because they feel separated from all of that. Is there a simple strategy? And I think about this often. Is there a simple strategy for business owners who are like, man, if we can just get the CEO and if we can just get our boss in here to like embrace these ideas, it'll change everything. But oftentimes that's the hardest person to get involved. Do you have a strategy for that?
I don't know. Try to help them find Jesus Christ. I mean, like, is their Lord and Savior? I mean, like, what?
So pray for them, basically, is what you're saying.
You got to pray for them and hope they, can understand that business. Look, every business is in business to make money. I get that. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is when you prioritize people first in their lives, you will always profit more, because it's a law. We reap what we sow. It's the way it goes. But when you prioritize profits first and not the people, then you're not in the mindset. We talked about, the go-giver, but it's that same thing. Like you have to believe that, maybe it's not the way your dad saw it. Maybe your dad started or your grandfather started the company and they just, people were just, they're a number, right? But you have to I've come to the realization in life that the things I learned as a child and growing up are always the right way of thinking. So it's okay to change the way you view something. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be open to new ideas and thoughts. And the proof is in the pudding. If you have more fire and more stress, you got to take a look in the mirror.
Absolutely, man. And this is so good, and so many people need to hear this. I love what you do so much, and it's so powerful. Our time is up. But I just want to honor you, Frank, and like just loving what you do, and just like it's incredible how to go in and help companies with these sorts of things, which also improves and changes lives. It's such an important thing that we have to do. Taking the gospel out into the marketplace is what needs to happen. If people want to get a hold of you, is the best way to find you at serve-centric Coaching, serve-centric.com. Is that the best way to get hold of you, or how should they get hold of you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me through the easiest way. I'm going through a website renovation as we speak. So they're doing a lot of testing, but so probably Frank at serve, SERVE, centric, CENTRIC, coaching, COACHING.com. Frank at ServeCentricCoaching.com.
Awesome, man. Frank, thank you so much for being a part of the Unstuck business.
Thank you for having me. Great conversation, Rob.